श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रं धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रं धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः। अभगतमदमानैरन्तिमोपायनिष्ठैः अधिगतपरमार्थैरर्थकामानपेक्षैः निखिलजनसुहृद्भिर्निर्जितक्रोधलोभैः वरवरमुनिभृत्यैरस्तु मे नित्ययोगः। So we continue from where we had left last week. Bhagavan mantrangal tan anekangal. So the previous sutra was Sakala Shastrangalal Pirakkum Jnanam Swayamarjitam Pole Tirumantrattal Pirakkum Jnanam Paitrikadhanam Pole. So the knowledge that is acquired by means of all the Shastras is like self-acquired property. Whereas the knowledge that is obtained by constantly chanting and meditating upon the Tirumantram or Ashtakshara Mahamantram is like an inherited property, in the sense that if a person has to acquire property by himself, he has to put in a huge amount of efforts. Whereas if a person has to become the recipient of the property that his ancestors have earned already, he just has to inherit it. So only the process of inheritance is to be carried out by him, rather than put in efforts to earn or amass the property on his own. So it is very well evident that the knowledge that is acquired by chanting the Tirumantram, knowledge of the divine, knowledge of the Supreme, that is acquired by chanting the Tirumantram, is like inheriting the property of the forefathers. And having said that, Swami Pullalokacharya proceeds to the next sutra. First he says, Bhagavan mantrangal tan anekangal Avedam Vyapakangalennum Avyapakangalennum Irendu Vargam. So the literal meaning is shared in the chat box. You can see that. So we will directly go to the commentary. Anal Shastrangalamindadahirade Bhagavan Mantrantan Tanitonu Mandre Pinneyum Palavillayo Venkirashankayane Mantrantarangalakkaattil இதற்கு உண்டான வைபவத்தை அருளிச் செய்வதாதர உள்ளம் பற்றி பகவன் மந்திரங்கள் தான் அநேகங்கள் என்கிறார். Astante gunarashivat gunaparivahatmanam janmanam sankhya bahavo nrupakalyanah gunah putrasya santite tavananta gunasyapi shadeva prathame gunaha bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacha arjuna ennum எண்ணில் தொல் புகழ் காரணி நன்னலே என்னும் எண்ணின்னையோ நியுமாய் பிறந்தாய் என்னும் இத்தியாதிகளில் சொல்லுகிறபடியே பகவத் குணங்களும் குணபரிவாகங்களுமான அவதாரங்களும் அசங்கியாதமாயிருக்குமா போதே அவத்தை அனுபந்தித்திருக்கும் மந்திர விசேஷங்களும் அனந்தாவை பகவன் மந்திராஹா என்கிறபடியே அநேகங்களாயிருக்கும் என்கை. So he says Bhagavan mantrangal thaan anekangal. There are several mantras that are associated with the Supreme Lord Narayana. But among those mantras, why is this Tirumantra the best? The best. So he says there are thousands and thousands are innumerable avatars, countless avatars in the incarnations of the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the Supreme Lord has countless auspicious qualities. Similarly, the mantras that are associated with the Supreme Lord are also countless. But among the avatars, we deem the Krishna avatara as the best, because it is said Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, etc. And all the auspicious qualities have been depicted or have actually manifested in the Krishna avatara. So that is why we said the premier most avatara is the Krishna avatara. And among all the innumerable or countless auspicious qualities, we say Daya and such other qualities are most important as far as the individual soul or Jivatma is concerned. Because that is the quality that enables the Jivatma to actually approach the Paramatma or the Supreme Lord Narayana. So, just as the incarnations are innumerable or countless, just as the auspicious qualities of the Lord are innumerable or countless, just as the other issues associated, other auspicious issues associated with the Lord are countless, the mantras associated with the Supreme Lord are also countless. Anantavai Bhagavan mantraha. So Bhagavan mantraha anantaha. So they are innumerable or countless. Nobody can count them. But Avedam Vyapakangalennum Avyapakangalennum Mirandu Vargam Avayellan Dan Aneka Vargamo Enna. So are there several categories among the mantras? No. அதாவது சர்வ வியாபகமான பகவத் ஸ்வரூபத்தை பிரதிபாதிக்கையாலே வியாபகங்கள் என்னும். So which are the Vyapaka mantras? As per the commentary of Manava, I have given an explanation in the earlier class. That is also valid, but that is from a particular point of view. But Swami Manavala Mavani authoritatively says that the Vyapaka mantras are those which talk about the Sarvavyapakaமான Bhagavat Swarupattai Pratipadikkayane. The Vyapaka mantras are those that talk about the nature of the Supreme Lord, that is all pervasive or omnipresent. So they are called as Vyapaka mantras. On the other hand, there are these mantras which are known as Avyapaka mantras, which talk about Bhagavadavatara Gunacheshtitangalil Orondre Pratipadikkayane. Those mantras that talk about the omnipresence, omniscience, omnipotence, etc. of the Supreme Lord are Vyapaka mantras. Those that talk about one or two or a few number of qualities or a few activities about a particular incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Like I said, Hayagriva mantra or Sudarshana mantra, Narasimha mantra, etc. So it says Bhagavad Avatara Guna Cheshtitangalin Orondre Pratipadikayane. So it talks about one particular avatara, or it talks about one particular quality, or one particular pastime of the Supreme Lord. So they are known as Avyapaka mantras. So these mantras are categorized into these two divisions. So they are Ubhaya Vargama Irikkumengai. Then he says, Avyapakangalil Vyapakangal Moondrum Shreshtangal Vargadvayamum Tannilokkumo Venna. Avyapakangalil Vyapakangal Moondrum Shreshtangal Engiraradavathu Avyapakangalayirandulla Sakala Mantrangalilum Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Indre Vishnu Gayatril Odapadahira Vyapakamantarangal Moondrum Shreshthangalairikkumengai. A very, very important aspect is mentioned here. So we are familiar with the Vishnu Gayatri, which is as follows. Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. So here, this Gayatri mantra is very famous mantra, where it says, in the original Brahma Gayatri also we have Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Here we have Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. So the word Prachodayat is there. And I'm sure most of you might be aware of the meaning of the mantra. So the Vishnu Gayatri mantra is the famous mantra, which is Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Here three important names of the Lord are mentioned. The first is Narayana, the second is Vasudeva, the third is Vishnu. Among the Vyapaka mantras, there are three very important mantras which have these three names as their primary portion or as the primary part. So that is the Ashtakshara Mahamantra, which has the word Narayana itself. Then you have the Dvadashakshari Mahamantra, which is having Vasudeva as the main term. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And then you have the Vishnu Shadakshari mantra, which is Om Namo Vishnave. So these three mantras are the most important, because based on the Vishnu Gayatri, these three mantras have appropriated the three names of the Lord as their main components. So Ashtakshara Mahamantra, we know, I am not repeating it. So which has Narayana as the main word. Then Vishnu Dvadashakshari is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which has 12 syllables. And Om Namo Vishnave, which has 6 syllables. So all these three are all Vyapaka mantras. So more than the Avyapaka mantras, the Vyapaka mantras are very important. Which are these three, which have the names Narayana, Vasudeva and Vishnu as their primary components. And then among them also you have the Ashtakshara Mahamantra as the best, the most important mantra. That we are going to come later. Indra Vishnu Gayatriyil Odu Hirapadi Odu Padahira Vyapaka Mantrangal Moondrum Shreshthangalairikkumengai. In the Vishnu Gayatri, Narayana Vasudeva Vishnu Shabdangal and the Mantra Treyathukkum Pradhana Bhuta Namatrayangala Hayade சாதாரண பிரணவ நமசுக்களோட கூடின மந்திரத்ரயத்துக்கும் உபலக்ஷணமாக கடவது. And they are also associated with the syllable Om and also Namaha. So Om Namo Vishnave also you have Om and Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya also you have Om and Namaha. And in Tirumantra also you have Om and Namaha. Along with the principal name of the Lord, that is Narayana, Vasudeva and Vishnu respectively. Therefore they are Vyapaka mantras. But among them, which is the best? So Manavana Mavani says, the 11th Sutra, Pidalokacharya says, Ivai moondridam vaittukkondu periya tirumantram pradhanam. Among the Vyapaka mantras, the Periya Tirumantra or the Ashtakshara Mahamantra, which we are actually discussing about right now, is the most important one. So he said, Manavana Mamani very beautifully explains this. அதாவது அவ்யாபகங்களிற்காட்டில் ஸ்ரேஷ்டமாயிருந்துள்ள இந்த வியாபக மந்திரங்கள் மூன்றிலும் வைத்துக் கொண்டு நாராயணாய வித்மஹே என்று பிரதமோபாத்தமாகையாலும் அர்த்த பூர்த்தியாதிகளாலும் நாஸ்திச்ச அஷ்டாட்சராத் பரஹ நமந்திரோஷ்டாட்சராத் பரஹ என்னும்படியான பெருமையை உடைய திருமந்திரம் பிரதானமாயிருக்கும் என்கை. One very important aspect we have to note is the Vishnu Gayatri appears directly in the Vedic texts. So if a mantra is mentioned directly in the Vedic text, it has utmost importance or it has utmost prominence. So here, why is the Tirumantra most, or the Ashtakshara Mahamantra that we are discussing now, more important or most important than the other two? That is the Vishnu, the Vasudeva Dvadashakshari and Vishnu Shadakshari. Because the first word Narayana is taken in the Ashtakshara Mahamantra. Whereas the Vishnu Dvadashakshari, that is Vishnu Dvadashakshari and Shadakshari, have not included this particular name Narayana within themselves. Probably they could have said Om Namo Narayanaaya Vasudevaya Bhagavate or something like that. This time giving a alternative, we should not tell like that actually. But they could have included, hypothetically speaking. But they have not included the word Narayana. They don't have as a component the name Narayana. Similarly, the Vishnu Shadakshari also does not have it. Because the most important name of the Supreme Lord is the word Narayana only. Because its meaning is so huge. We are going to come across a huge sutra or Churnika in the future. It says Narangalavana. What is the meaning of the word Nara? Because he is going to etymologically analyze the word Narayana, which says Naraha Ayanam Yasya Saha and Narayana Ayanam. So we have two words, two components, namely the word Nara and the word Ayana, and also how the compound has been formed and what is the hidden meaning. So he is going to say he is going to explain in great detail what are all the components that are included in the word Nara, which encompasses everything in this universe. So he is going to explain, of course, even the word Vasudeva and Vishnu also have a similar meaning. But they are not as all-inclusive as the word Narayana. Since the Ashtakshara Mahamantra has as its main component the word Narayana, it is the most important mantra. And that is why it is said, Tacha Nasti cha Ashtaksharat Paraha. There is no other mantra which is greater than the Ashtakshara Mahamantra. That is why it is said Mantra Raja. So the Jaya Mantra is known as Mantra Ratna. Of course, each one is the best, incomparable to others. But when we see the greatness of the Ashtakshara Mahamantra, you see that the king or the king of kings. He is the Chakravarti or the emperor. So is there anybody who is greater than the emperor? No. He is the first, most prominent citizen of the country. That is why it is said, Namantraha Ashtaksharat Paraha, Nasti cha Ashtaksharat Paraha, etc. Innum padiyana perumai udaya tirumantram pradhanamai irikkumengai. Then what about the other two? That is the Dwadashakshara Mahamantra and the Shadakshara Mahamantra. Is it not associated with the Lord? Will a person not attain salvation if he chants those mantras? Yes, of course. They also, because we say Vyapaka mantras are better than Avyapaka mantras. But they have a small drawback. So what are that? He says in the 12th sutra, Matte avairandakkum ashishta parigrahamum apurtiyumundu. For those two Vyapaka mantras have one drawback. The first drawback is they have been appropriated by people belonging to other systems of philosophy. And apurti, they are not complete in all respects. Therefore, these are the two drawbacks that the Dwadashakshara Mahamantra and the Shadakshara Mahamantra have. What are the drawbacks? One is Ashishta Parigraha. I will come to that. Mattai Vyapakadvayattakkum Taalvayedenna. What is the drawback in the, or what are the drawbacks in the other two mantras? So, Adavade Vasudeva Vishnu Shabdanganana Mattai Vyapakamantrangalirentum Narayana Shabdam Pole Swarupa Gunadihalayellam Pratipadiyade Swarupamatratte Pratipadikayade Nirvishesha Jinmatra Vastuvadihanana Kudrishtihal Mihum Madarittaporuhira Ashishta Parigrahamam Vyapyadhyaharadi Sapekshitayahira Purtiyamundengai. So very succinctly he mentions about the drawbacks of the two mantras. So the word Vasudeva, what does it mean? Vasati sarvam adhivasayati iti Vasuhu. Vasushchasau devascha Vasudevaha. This is how the word Vasudeva has been etymologically derived. So what is the meaning of the word Vasudeva? It is split into two words. It's a compound word. That is, Vasu means Vasati Vasayati iti Vasu. One who dwells in all the entities, namely all the sentient and insentient entities. And one who makes all the other things dwell. Meaning, one who makes everything else exist. That means he is the cause of existence of all the things in the world. And he exists in all those things, all those entities as an antaryami or indweller. So Vasati, Vasayati, Vasati iti Vasuhu, Vasati, Vasayati, both the meanings. Vasati means, Vasa is a root which means to dwell. So he dwells in every entity and he makes all other entities dwell. That means exist. And he is also Devaha, he is also the premier most deity, demigod. So a demigod who makes everything dwell and also who is the indweller of everything. That is Vasudeva. And Sanskrit is such a beautiful language filled with peculiarities that Vasudeva also refers to Lord Krishna. Because Vasudevasya apatyam puman Vasudeva. It so happened that Krishna's father was named as Vasudeva. And since he became the son of Vasudeva, he is called Vasudeva. It is called as a Tadhita Pratyaya, or a suffix that is added to the word Vasudeva, which also results in the word Vasudeva. And he is none other than Lord Krishna. So, analytically speaking, the word Vasudeva means Lord Narayana only without any doubt. It refers to Lord Narayana only without any doubt. But it does not give as wide a meaning and as deep a meaning as the word Narayana gives. Though Narayana also has the same meaning, the spectrum of the meaning covered by Narayana is much, much, much larger than the spectrum of meaning covered by the word Vasudeva. And in the other Vishnu Shadakshari, the word Vishnu is used. Of course, Vishnu also means the same thing, Vishildrivyapto. One who expands himself into the entire world and one who is the indweller of everything. That is also having a similar meaning. But you have to actually import certain meanings based on the context to have a complete picture of the meaning that is derived from the word Vishnu and Vasudeva. Whereas the word Narayana encompasses the entire range of meanings that are attributable to the entity that is denoted by the word. So many a times I give this example. In Western culture, it doesn't exist. I am sorry to say that. Kindly don't mistake me. So suppose in India we have a word Sumangali. So Sumangali is a person, is a woman. She has to be married. Her husband should be alive, and also they should be living together. And she should be following certain basic practices. So this one word gives 4 or 5 aspects, there is no equal word in English because such a concept does not exist in Western culture. For example, we talk about a word called Echel or what is it? Once again, there is no word. It means leftover. It means that which is partaken by somebody else. In Sanskrit, we call it as Uchishta. Keshavdas-ji, are you familiar with the word? Yeah, remnant. So, remnant is one of the shades of the meaning. Suppose a person is biting his nails. He said, don't do it, don't do that. Uchishta. Because HL also means saliva. So it has so many connotations for which there is no equivalent in English. So similarly, we have the word Sumangali. So you say you invite 5 Sumangalis and worship them or treat them. So they have to be married, they should not be widows, they should be following certain principles, they should have a bindi on their face, they should be wearing flowers, they should be wearing the toe rings, they should have a Mangal Sutra. Having sons is not, that meaning is not included. Because even if a person is married and does not have sons, she is considered to be Sumangali. So like that, the word Narayana encompasses a whole range of all the meanings, all the issues associated with the Lord. And therefore it is the best name of the Lord. So that is why the word Narayana, 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 everywhere the word Narayana is used to denote the Supreme Lord. But that doesn't mean the other names are not, because according to the philosophy of Vishtadvaita, Ramanujacharya says, Sarve Shabdaha Paramatmanaha Vacha. All the words that denote dravyas or substances are the denoters of the Supreme Lord Narayana. But even if you say pen or book, ultimately it refers to Lord Narayana only, because he is the indweller. But when you can directly mention a word that directly denotes him, why take an indirect method? And then the word also has a very important role to play, the sound of the word, if I may put it that way. The sound of the word also has a very important role to play. Because, for example, in Sanskrit, it is applicable to a certain extent in all languages. But when you have to denote a tiger, you say Vyaghraha. So when you say Vyaghraha, it means that which is almost ready to pounce upon you. Or when you say Simha, Kanthiravaha. So it instills a sort of fear within you, as if a tiger has really come or a lion has really come. Because Sanskrit is a language that is very, very close to nature. And my Acharya and my Acharya's Acharya used to specifically mention, in all languages you can see, when you say up, down, you can see. When you say pronounce the word up, automatically you feel you are going little upwards. And when you say down, it's automatically you are going. Urdhvam, adha. Mele, kile. You can pronounce and see. All the languages are associated with nature, but Sanskrit is the best language which is very closely associated with nature. Therefore, the word Narayana is the best word. That is why it said, Artaha, Vishinnaha, Shithilascha Bhitaha, Ghoreshu cha Vyadhishu Vartamanaha, Sankirtya Narayana Shabdama, Vimukta Dukkhaha Sukhim. I see onomatopic. I see. I was not aware of this word. So, the word that has Narayana as its component is the best. Whereas the other two words, the Vishnu Dwadashakshari or the Dwadashakshara Mahamantra, it is taken as the main mantra by the Advaitins. Though they don't accept the God has, that the Supreme Lord has qualities, etc. When they worship the Saguna Brahman, they accept the prominence or superiority of Lord Vishnu. And it is said that the Shankaracharya used to constantly chant the Dwadashakshara Mahamantra. So, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, this remark. Since they have appropriated it, let us not touch it. So he says, Ashishta Parigraham. So since the Ashishtas are the followers of Advaita philosophy have started using it or started chanting it extensively, we will not touch it. Many a times when a beautiful dish, a wonderful dish has been prepared for the Lord and it is kept ready for offering. Suppose a person who is not supposed to touch that or see that, he touches it, then it is not offered to the Lord. So nowadays people may say you are discriminating against people. All human beings are same. Why you should discriminate based on caste, based on creed, based on birth, etc. But it is inevitably true that each person, based on his birth and other factors associated with birth, has certain characteristics that cannot be denied. So I will not go into that, because how the genes are formed and how the qualities are passed by means of genes, etc. So very one or two points just I want to mention. When even today, when you have to go to a dog show in every country, whether it is US, India or Europe, if a dog has to be admitted in a show where all the premium dogs are there, you have to have the pedigree certificate, where 7 generations from the mother's side and the father's side have to be produced. Same thing with regard to horses, same thing with regard to cows. So people who talk about equality among all human beings, we also accept all human beings are equal. But just as the thumb impression of each and every individual, you have 6 billion people or something in this world. The thumb impression of each of the 6 billion people is different. Is it not? So each individual is unique and different. And this classification of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra definitely exists in all communities. You have the classification in plants. You have the Chaturvanya in plants, you have Chaturvanya in animals. You have Chaturvanya among the Swaras or the sounds. Chaturvanya among the Vedas. Yajurvedam Kshatriyasya Huryonim Samavedo Brahmananam Prasutihi Rigbhyo Jatam Vaishyam Varnamahu. The Samaveda is the Brahmana Veda. Rigveda is the Vaishya Veda. Yajurveda is the Kshatriya Veda, and Atharvana Veda is the Shudra Veda. That doesn't mean Atharvana Veda is to be given up. All the 4 Varnas are integral part of the whole. Among trees you have this, among Swaras you have, among animals you have. So we see that when in our house, still in Melkote, we have nearly 15-20 cows. Certain cows are very fierce, certain cows are very docile, certain cows are very clean. Even though they put the dung there itself, they will not sleep on the dung. You need not, they are very clean. Even though there is a very small space, they will avoid sleeping on the dung. Whereas certain cows, they don't care. We have to wash their body every day to keep them clean. So they will excrete the dung and sleep on them. And while eating, we see that certain cows waste a lot of fodder. Whereas certain cows, they eat in such a neat and clean manner that even one strand of grass will not be left over. And then they have the concept, cows have the concept of HL or leftover, remnant. Certain cows, if one bucket of water has been offered to a cow and it has taken half a bucket, it has consumed, drank. If the same bucket, same water is offered to another cow, some cows will not drink it. So you have to pour that water away and then get new water in the bucket and offer it. Then they will drink. So even the workers who are working there, they said, "Sir, this cow is a Brahmin cow. It does not partake the water that is offered to other cows." You can see the characteristics. That doesn't mean we are deriding any cow or anything like that. And then some cows are envious. If you actually pet the other cow standing beside this cow, will not like. We see that in dogs. Some cows, they are always accommodating. Some cows, they will not allow strangers to touch them. Others will allow strangers to touch them. Some cows will allow only designated persons to milk them. Other cows will not, some cows does not allow anybody at all. They will never get milk. So you can see in plants also, you can see the behavior of the plants. You can notice them, how the behavior changes from plant to plant. So anyway, so this classification occurs, is acceptable in all the things. So since others have appropriated, namely the Advaita followers of the Advaita philosophers have extensively using the Dvadashakshara Mahamantra, we feel it is better we keep away from that mantra. That doesn't mean it is very despisable or anything like that. But since they have taken, let them keep it, we will stay a little bit away. Because the nature of a human being who is steeped in the Lord and who he wishes to separate himself from the masses. That is why Lord Krishna says in the Daivi Sampak, he says, Aratir Janasamsadi. So celebrities always want to go when there are big functions and say, I am like this, and show them off. Whereas a person who is steeped in spirituality, he will never try to go to a place where there are a lot of people. He will say, no, so many people are there, I don't want to come there. So Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Aratihi Janasamsadi. So that is how it is. So निर्विशेष चिन्मात्र वस्तु हलान कुदृष्टिहल मिहवुम आदरित पोरहिर अशिष्ट परिग्रहमुम व्याप्याध्याहारादि सापेक्षितया हिर पूर्तियमुंडेंगै षडक्षरी व्याप्य पदार्थंगளையும் व्यापन प्रकारத்தையும் व्याप्ति फलத்தையும் व्यापकनुடைய குணங்களையும் சொல்லாதே व्याप्ति मात्र प्रकाशकमायादे अपूर्णम. So the reasons why the Om Namo Vishnave, the Vishnu Shadakshari is incomplete is that it does not talk, it says Vishildra Vyapto, that means all encompassing or he omnipresent. But it doesn't talk about the Vyapaka Pada, Vyapya Padartha, which are the entities that are pervaded by the Supreme Lord, how he is pervading, then what is the use of the pervasion, and also the qualities of the pervasion. These four aspects are not mentioned. It merely mentions the vyapti or the pervasion only. Vyapti matra prakashakamahyade apurnam. Vyapana prakarathai cholla nirkachchaideyum. Vyapya padarthangalukku vajaka shabdam illamayalum. Sarvam vasati endre arabdha balattare artha balattare sarva shabdam puhundarum adil gunam anvayamayalum. Ini gunasiddhikkaha bhagavat shabdattai kootik kolla venumendriyalum vyapti phalattai chollamayalum tirudvadashaksharium apurnam. And the reason why the Dvada is, what is the question? Since Ashtakshara is the best of all mantras, is it that Shri Vaishnavas use this mantra? Yes, 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 yes. You are absolutely right. Anyway, I'll come to that. So, What are the drawbacks of the Dvadashakshara Mahamantra? It doesn't talk about the gunas or the qualities of the Supreme Lord, which are extremely essential if a person has to praise the Supreme Lord, because it is said that the stotra, which is very important as far as the Sri Vaishnava path is concerned. Guninishta Gunabhidhanam Stotram. So, mentioning about the qualities that exist in the entity which is being described is known as Stotra. The Vasudeva mantra, the mantra that has Vasudeva as its component, does not talk about the gunas. Similar and further, to compound the meaning, the word Bhagavate is Bhagavat Shabda is added, which makes it a longer mantra. So human nature is such that if something can be accomplished with lesser efforts, it will do it. So suppose some assistant is sitting beside me and I need to fetch a pen from the other room. I will not bring it myself. I will say, please get that pen for me. Or I will say, hey, get that pen. I will order him. Or I will request him. Because human nature is such that if a task can be accomplished with minimal efforts, it will do it. Many times, if we have to think too much, we feel, oh, why I should think so much? Let me not worry about it. Let whatever happen, happen. Whatever happens, let it happen. Therefore, what happens is, in the Dvadashakshara Mahamantra, what happens? வியாபன பிரகாரத்தை சொல்லா நிற்கச் செய்தேயும் வியாபிய பதார்த்தங்களுக்கு வாச்சக சப்தம் இல்லாமையாலும். So it does not tell what all he pervades and how he pervades. Sarvam vasati என்று artha balattare sarva shabdam puhundalum. So I said, vasati sarvam adhivasayati iti vasam. He pervades everything in this world. So the word sarvam has to be, we call it as adhyahara in Sanskrit. It is said as, you have to, based on the context, you have to add that word to make the sentence complete. Suppose I say come. What does it mean? It means you come. So then you have to add, they will put, while writing, they say you will be put in the brackets and say then come. So you have to actually add a word based on the context. We have to add the word sarvam to make the meaning complete and sensible. This is another drawback in that word. And then, why does he pervade all those things? The result of the pervasion is not mentioned, is not available, it's not embedded in the word Vasudeva. While in the word Narayana, all these meanings are embedded. Therefore, Vyapti Palattai Chollahya Chollamayalum Tiridvadashaksharium Apurnam Immantram Avaiporanye Vyapya Padarthangalodu Vyapana Prakarattodu Vyapti Palattodu Vyapakanuடைய குணங்களோடு வாசியர சாப்தமாக காட்டுகையாலே அவத்திற்காட்டில் இதுக்கு அர்த்த பௌஷ்கல்ய நிபந்தனமான ஆதிக்கம் உண்டு. So the word Narayana, it talks about all these aspects. It talks about what are the things that entities he pervades, how he pervades, for what reason he pervades, what are the qualities of the person who is pervading. So all these aspects are embedded in the word Narayana. And also along with the word Om and Namaha, words Om and Namaha. And therefore, this mantra having as its component the word Narayana is the most important mantra, best among the best. என்று மத்தை வியாபக மந்திரங்கள் இரண்டினுடைய பூர்த்தியும் திருமந்திரத்தினுடைய பூர்த்தியும் சுஸ்பஷ்டமாக ஆச்சான் பிள்ளை அருளி செய்தாரிலே. So பெரியவாச்சான் பிள்ளை are one of the premier most acharyas who succeeded Ramanujacharya and who preceded Pilladokacharya. He has mentioned about the greatness of the word Narayana in this manner, which has been beautifully explained in this context by Swami Manohar, based on the inputs given by Pilladokacharya. And then is Pilladokacharya telling this on his own, or is there any proper evidence to say this? Then he says in the 13th sutra, இத்தை வேதங்களும் ரிஷிகளும் ஆழ்வார்களும் ஆச்சாரியர்களும் விரும்பினார்கள். So it's not as if I, Pilladokacharya, am telling this. This has been well accepted and well enumerated by வேதங்களும் ரிஷிகளும் ஆழ்வார்களும் ஆச்சாரியர்களும் விரும்பினார்கள். The Ashtakshara Mahamantra has been commended as the best mantra by the Vedas, by the Rishis or sages, by the Alvars and also the Acharyas. So all the four of them have very clearly enumerated the supremeness of the Ashtakshara Mahamantra. How is it? We will see. Swami Manavadamamani gives a very extensive explanation for this. So we will not take too much time, not too little time. அதாவது விஷ்ணு காயத்ரியிலே வியாபக மந்திரத்தையும் சொல்லுகிறவளவில் பிரதமத்திலே நாராயண சப்தத்தை பிராதான்யேன பிரதிபாதிக்கையாலும். So how the Vedas have commended this mantra? The first point is the Vishnu Gayatri, which is the Vyapaka mantra. The first name is Narayana. They could have said Vasudevaya Vidmahe Narayanaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. They are not told like that. Even Vasudeva, Narayana, both are having four syllables. Why haven't they told like that? Why has the Vedas mentioned Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi? It could have mentioned Vasudevaya Vidmahe Narayanaya Dhimahi. It has not done like that. So it has given first preference to the word Narayana. Then Vishwan Narayanam Devam Aksharam Paramam Prabhum Narayana Param Brahma Tattvan Narayana Paraha Narayana Paro Jyotiratma Narayana Sthitaha. It is in the Narayana Suktam, which I am sure you will be familiar. Yacchakin chidjagatyasmin drishyate shruyate piva antarbahishyatat sarvam vyapya Narayana sthitaha. Endre sakala vedanta sarabhutamana Narayananuvaakattilum. Narayananuvaka, the Narayana Sukta, is the purport of all the Vedas and Vedantas. And then Eko Havai Narayana Asinna Brahmanesha Nahane Medyava Prithvi. The Mahopanishad says first it was only Lord Narayana who existed. Not Brahma, not Vishnu, not Shiva, or not any other thing, any this earth or sky or anything like that. Jakshuscha Drashtavyancha Narayanaha Shrotrancha Shrotavyancha Narayanaha ennu Todangi Dishascha Pradishascha Narayanaha endre mudivaha Naduvadaya Subalopanishattilum. Subalopanishad is considered as a great pramana by Lord Swami Ramanujacharya. And here it specifically mentions the supremeness of Lord Narayana. Yasyatma shariram yasya prithivi shariram endre thudangi yasya mrityush shariram endre engira தீராக நடவுள்ள பரியாயங்கள் தோறும் ஏஷ சர்வபூதாந்தராத்மா அபஹத பாப்மா திவ்யோ தேவ ஏகோ நாராயணः என்று அந்தர்யாமி பிராமணத்திலும் வாசுதேவ விஷ்ணு சப்தங்களை அனாதரித்து நாராயண சப்தத்தை இட்டு பகவத் ஸ்வரூபாதிகளை நிர்தேசிக்கையாலும் even the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which the Advaitins say, mentions that this Jivatma and Paramatma are one. Even we say in a different manner. But they say Jivatma doesn't exist at all, as it is mentioned in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, but it is not so. Because in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad itself, in the Antaryami Brahmana, it specifically says, Yesha Divya, Yesha Sarvabhutantaratma Apahatapapma Divyo Deva Eko Narayanaha. And here, in all these places, the Vedic passages themselves have not mentioned the word Vasudeva or Vishnu. Therefore, that doesn't mean those two words are very bad or something like that. But they are not as great as the word Narayana because of the reasons that have been given earlier. Anadarit Narayana Shabdattaitte Bhagavat Swarupadi Nirdeshikayalum Apaurusheyamai Nitya Nirdoshamai Swatah Pramanangalana Vedangalum Virumbittina. Veda is Apaurusheya. It has not been authored by anybody. It is an eternal literature that has been passed from generation to generation over several cycles of creation and dissolution. Nitya Nirdoshamai. It is bereft of any fallacy. Eternally bereft of any fallacy. And Swatah Pramanangal. It is an authority by itself. The authority or authenticity of the Vedas are not dependent on anything else other than themselves. They themselves. Then, Yatha Sarveshu Deveshu Nasti Narayanat Paraha. Unquestionable, correct. Yatha Sarveshu Mantreshu Nasti Ashtaksharat Paraha. So until now, he quoted all the Vedic passages. Then he quotes the Rishi held, the passages of the Rishis, namely in the Puranas, which we will see in the next class. I hope it has been informative and you have enjoyed the class. Any reactions?
Yes.
Hello?
This is
Yeah.
Varadarajan. Did you have some question?
No, I enjoyed it. It was very, very nice. But I just want to ask you, Swami, if somebody marries, let's say for example, I'm not a Brahmin, but I'm a Christian. I marry a staunch Brahmin. Do I become a Brahmin?
Are you asking in today's context or are you asking in the context of the Shastras?
The Shastras.
So in the Shastras, it is according to the Dharma Shastras that were written by our forefathers, the male is actually the head of the family And the female, if the female who is of a lower caste marries a male of a higher caste, then she will actually acquire the varna of the male. That is how it is. But I don't know in the case of Christians and Muslims, because when the scriptures were authored, these two religions were not there. So within the four varnas, that is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, it was there. But today we don't have such a demarcation, because there is no proper demarcation as to who a Brahmin is, who is a Kshatriya, who is a Vaishya, who is a Shudra. By definition, we are all Shudras today. My guru used to say, why we are all called dasas. The Shudras are supposed to be the dasas or servants. And we are all dasas of Ramanujacharya, we are the servants, because we have lost our Brahminhood. Though we are supposed to be in India, we are supposed to be born as Brahmins. We have nothing to show for our Brahminhood. Therefore, Ramanujacharya considered all of us as Shudras, as dasas, and therefore we are subservient to the Supreme Lord. So today, that question how to consider, and the society has changed so much. In those days, Brahmins used to live separately, Kshatriyas used to live separately. Their food habits were different, their lifestyle was different. All these things were different, so there was some identity. Today, that identity does not exist. So when I go to my college, I am like any other ordinary human being, where all of us mix together and mingle together. And I am also considered to be one person. I have no problem with that. But I am not considered as a Brahmin. I am not given prominence in India. If you show off that if you profess your Brahminhood, you are supposed to be the most despisable person. So when I go on the street or when I go to my job in my college, I am considered an ordinary human being, like everybody else. In fact, many times, as far as the policy of the Indian government is concerned, Brahmins are to be despised, and they are to be actually treated at the lowest rung. That is how the society is today in India or everywhere. Of course, in America or any other country, you don't have that. But there also you find racism and things are there in human mind. It is there. So discrimination is incorrect. Distinction is correct. So there is difference between discrimination and distinction. So each person has his own advantages and disadvantages, but that is why Ramanujacharya said, as far as bhakti is concerned, everybody, all the devotees are equal. So when we are in the temple in the Goshti, all the persons are considered equal, and that is why everything is distributed in an equal manner.
So in that case, everybody can say, differentiating between man and woman, man has to say Am Narayana, yeah, something like that, or women has to say, man has to say Om Namah Narayana, and women has to say. But if they are in the temple, any human being can say, if the man, Om Narayana, yeah. Because
so that Om, why Pranava was not included has different background altogether. It has got nothing to do with this. Pranava cannot be, to put it in a nutshell, if a person's body, of course now we have lost our sensitivity, whatever you tell, nothing will happen. Because our sensitivity is at the lowest type, but it has almost disappeared. But if the Pranava is chanted as per the procedure, then women actually lose their fertility. Therefore, women were not actually taught the Pranava. To put it in a nutshell, this has to be explained in great length. I will not do. Even in Tengalai Sampradayam, many a times, most of the times, the Samashayanam would be done only after women had 2 or 3 children. Because in case they were sensitive enough, so since they have already had children, it will not be a problem. So that is the But once again, there are several theories that say no, nothing happens and all those things. But there is strong evidence to say that this is about it. Even with regard to Shudras, why this Pranava was not given, because if they actually chant the Pranava and their body it is chanted in the proper way, it may affect their bodily functions, not fertility essentially, but bodily functions, due to which their lives may have some problems. They may have problems in their lives. So it is based on that and got nothing to do with the caste system or anything like that. So Am Namo Narayana, because even Pranava cannot be associated with Shiva mantras. That is why you have only Namah Shivaya, which is chanted by Brahmins. Pranava cannot be attached to Shiva mantras. So mantras that are associated with the deity of Shiva. Only the Veerashaivas, then they transgressed the rule and they started to being Shadakshari. It is Om Namah Shivaya. But no Brahmin, or even for that matter, even Sringeri Swamiji are the premier Brahmin mutts belonging to Advaita Sampradaya, when they actually give the Upadesha of Shiva mantra, they will never associate Pranava with that. They can associate Pranava only with the Vishnu mantras. So it's not something to do with some communal issue or discrimination or something like that. It is based on the laws of nature. That much I can say.
Swami, we had some questions in the text by Govindachari. One was that Sri Vaishnavas use Astakshara mantra when they do a Tiruvaradhanam at home, no matter which form they're worshipping of the Lord, Krishna, Rama, Narasimha, they're always using Astakshara. They're not using they're only using this Vyapaka mantra, Astakshara mantra, and not using any other Mula mantra. Is it? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
It has been, see, it is simple. So if you have to do the Patra Sadhana, as it is called, when you have the 5 vessels, Adhyapadya Achamani. So you place your hand on that and say, Adhyapa, Om Namo Narayana, Arjim Parikalpayami, Om Namo Narayana, Padyam Parikalpayami. Then when you have the main vessel from which the water is poured, for that you have to hold it on that, put your hand on that and chant Mula Mantra 6 times. Then you do 8 times, 12 times, 14 times. So ultimately, it is the power that is there in the human being that is transferred to the materials. And that power is derived from the mantras. So without Mula Mantra, nothing. Even there doesn't exist life. And it is well used, well utilized by the Sri Vaishnavas.
Yes. In Pancharatra, however, different places have got different temples in Pancharatra have given prominence to different mantras, like in Sri Rangam, Dwarasakshara, in Kanchipuram, Sadakshara, in Melkote, Astakshara. So in this way, Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is a little different from the Pancharatra school because it gives prominence to Astakshara.
It doesn't mean, even there Astakshara is extensively used in all the mantras. But it is like this, some person might be more inclined towards the Dwadashakshari, then fine. It depends upon how the Pratishtha has been done and the powers, internal powers of those mantras. So one person might be individually, there are exceptions for every rule. So individually, that person might have consecrated that place using he might have been a mantra siddha in the Dwadashakshara Maha Mantra. So he might have prescribed that mantra to be extensively used in that kshetra, like Srirangam or Kanchipuram or somewhere. Then that is acceptable. But overall, when you take a holistic view, the Ashtakshara Maha Mantra gains prominence.
Yes. So Govindachari also
you take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. So Govindachari also asked if there is a prominence in a particular mantra for Sri Devi also. So just like we have 3 Vyapaka mantras for Lord Narayana, are there different mantras for Sri Devi also like that?
They are also considered as Vyapaka mantras, but you don't have separate mantras for Sri Devi which are as Vyapaka or as all-encompassing as these three mantras.
So there'll be also a difference between Tenacharya Sampradaya and Deshika Sampradaya as to the type of Vyapaka that Sri Devi.
No.
You know, the Guna Vyapti and the Swarupa Vyapti.
No.
No?
Not. In that aspect, I don't think there is any
Okay.
difference of opinion.
All right. So then he also wants to know about that there is a common understanding that Akara means Narayana and Ukara means Sri Devi and Makara means Chaitanas and not Chaitanas. So so this is accepted by both sampradayas.
That is all universal.
Right. So then that was
regarding
what
the nature of Sri Devi, there is some unnecessary complication that
Right.
we will discuss later.
Right. So I just had some questions also. This is in Bhagavata we have the example of Ajamila. Ajamila chanted Narayana. He only chanted Narayana. He didn't chant Astakshara, and he
Yes.
also didn't do Prapati. But he didn't go immediately to Vaikuntha. He had to do some more bhakti yoga, let's say, before he could attain moksha. So is the reason that he didn't go immediately to Vaikuntha because he didn't do Prapati, or because he didn't chant Astakshara, or because he only chanted Narayana and not any other thing, or because he was thinking about his son and not thinking about the Supreme?
This is a very controversial topic. I don't know how people will take it. Because when we talk about when the greatness of the Nama Sankirtana, the greatness of the word Narayana is mentioned, of course, it can beget moksha instantly. That is what is mentioned. When the greatness of the word Narayana is seen, yes, correct. But one thing which my Acharya used to specifically say is that now it is mentioned Artha, Vishanna, Shitla, Shtapita, Ghoresh, Vyarchu, Artamanaha. Sankhya, you know the meaning of this verse, I suppose. Do you know it?
Sankirtya Narayana Sabdamatram
Yes.
Vimukha. Yes.
You know the meaning.
You
So
can say. You can say.
Those who have diseases, those who are sad, those who have a lot of misery, all these people, just by mentioning the word Narayana, they will get rid of their diseases, they will get rid of their sadness, they will get rid of their miseries and all those things, and they will become happy. That is what this mantra says. Just by mentioning the word Sankirtan Narayana Shabdamatra. So suppose I had a headache, severe headache some time back. I mentioned Narayana, it did not go. So does that mean that what is mentioned in this shloka is false? Or even it is mentioned in Haryashtaka, Koti Janma Kritam Papam Smaranena Vinashyati. There is a beautiful Haryashtaka, that is the greatness of the word Hari. Are you familiar with that stotra?
Again, you please explain.
Sorry, are you familiar with that?
I mean, I've heard of it. The exact thing you're quoting.
Right.
I'm not.
It says Hari. The greatness of Hari is so great. It is of the two syllables, namely Hari. So where it says, so it says Harir Harati Papani Dushta Chittairapi Smrtaha Anichayapi Samsprishto Dahatyevahi Pavata. Beautiful, beautiful stotra. So even if a person who is a wicked person, he mentions the two-syllable name called Hari, all his sins are washed away. Just like if a person who does not know that the fire burns. So I don't know, but just because I don't know, will the fire not burn if I put my hand into it? Similarly, even if a wicked person mentions the name Hari, he will get rid of his sins are washed away. And it says the sins committed in 10 million births will be washed away just by remembering Hari. I asked my guru. Then he said, to remember, have you seen Hari? So how can I remember visiting Hawaii? Because can I remember Hawaii? I cannot remember because I have not seen. So here also, when you say me telling the word Narayana, when you tell the word Narayana, immediately you should have the vision of the Lord. When I say a bird, immediately the picture of the bird comes to your mind. When I say a pen, immediately this thing comes to your mind. So when I say Narayana, it should immediately result in the vision of the Lord in your mind. Then definitely it will happen.
Yes. So
now we are only mentioning the word without realizing its meaning.
But still, there is benefit with just saying the word.
Definitely there is. Definitely
but
there is.
Full
No
benefit only comes when we realize, when we have the vision.
Yes.
I see.
Definitely,
okay.
even without knowing the meaning, Sanketyam parihasyam va stobham helaname.
Yeah.
So even if you are telling to, we have many instances like
we call this namabhasa. Namabhasa.
Yes.
The shadow
but one thing is, if you are really faithful, definitely it will lead you one day or the other. So as far as Ajamikanopakhyanā is concerned, after he realized that what he had done earlier in his life was wrong, then he corrected himself and ultimately he attained moksha. But when we talk about, see, when you tell to ordinary people the greatness, when you want to tell, you simplify it and tell, because yesterday also there was a question like this. Many times, many commentators or many people who give discourses, they say once you perform Samashenam or Sharanagati, you need not do anything, you will get moksha instantly. Then a question was asked. So suppose a person performs Sharanagati, then he starts drinking and alcohol and all sorts of bad things. Will he get moksha? How can he get? In the Dvaya Prakarana, which we are going to study later, 15 characteristics of a Prapanna is mentioned. Puram Mundana Pratyakale Edevasniyode Vidhayam Peritappadinithirindirindirikkayam Petitarikkayam. 15 characteristics of in the Vaishnavadhikarikya Avashyapekshitam. The Dvaya Prakarana starts with this beautiful sutra, wherein 15 characteristics of a Sharanagata or Prapanna is mentioned. But do the people who give discourses, do they not tell this? They will not tell it because they want ordinary people to get attracted and become astikas or become the devotees. So in the beginning they will not tell. It's not, I am not telling it. Pilladokacharya has told you. So if a person has to be called as a Vaishnava, he should have all these characteristics. Unless he has these characteristics, how he says in the Vaishnavadhikarikya Avashyapekshitam. Invariably a Vaishnava has to have these characteristics. If such a Vaishnava exists, then surely he will attain moksha immediately. There is no problem. At the end of this birth only he will attain. But it is not so easy to get all these 15 characteristics.
Okay, so some other things. I noticed that you mentioned that Taittiriya, the Vishnu Gayatri, it comes in Taittiriya Aranyaka. Yes. And the Astakshara itself comes in the Narayana Upanishad, which is considered to be an Atharva Veda Upanishad.
Yes, Narayana Atharvashira Upanishad. Yes.
Do you make some distinction because the Vishnu Gayatri and even the word Vishnu is used more in Rig Veda than in Atharva Veda? You said that Atharva Veda is a Brahman Veda.
No, that has got nothing to do with this. That is based on some other criteria which is to be explained at great length. I will not go into that. There Vishnu is considered to be as a demigod we see, not as the supreme. In those contexts.
In Taittiriya Aranyaka or in Rig Veda? Tadvishnu.
Yes. In many places, not in all places.
Because Narayana Anuvaka comes in Taittiriya Aranyaka.
Yes, yes, yes. No, but that has got nothing to do with the Rigveda being Vaishyaveda or anything like that.
Okay, all right. Then you also mentioned about how the Astakshara, some of these mantras, Vyapaka mantras, have been adopted by people of other doctrines. And you said Dwarasakshara is adopted by the Advaitins.
No, that is what is mentioned by Manavada Mami.
Yeah, but my experience is that the Dvaitins, the Advaitins, and the Vishishtadvaitins all have adopted mostly Astakshara only.
No, they have later they have adopted Ashtakshara. They also have seen the greatness of the Ashtakshara and now they have adopted. See, one thing is, this is there in, so Lord Narayana did not give it only to Vishishtadvaitins or those who are having this Sri Vaishnavas. It is there for everybody.
Okay.
So it is for every Jivatma or individual soul it has been given. The fact that we worship it more gives us some credibility.
Yeah, I was very interested though that Dwarasakshara was singled out as being adopted by the Advaitins because the Advaitins are interested in Nirguna, but Bhagavate, the word Bhagavata, Bhagavan, seems to indicate gunas. So
Yes.
why Advaitins would be interested in a mantra with Bhagavan?
I have to see in the works whether where Shankaracharya has mentioned. We have to see that. I have not found any specific references. I will try and find out.
Also, you were saying that the Shaivas and some other people, except for Veera Shaivas, are not using Omkara, the Astakshara, with Shivaya, with mantras for Shiva.
Yes.
But we see that every time any person starts to do Veda Parayana, they always start Harihi Om.
Yes.
It is always started Harihi Om.
Yes, that is ordained in the Pratishakya, the Vedic grammar.
Taittiriya Pratishakya.
Sorry?
In Taittiriya Pratishakya or in another Pratishakya?
I don't know. I have to find out.
But it's in the Pratishakya or in
the Veerashaivas actually say Haraha Om, which is totally incorrect.
Haraha.
They have no authority to chant the Vedas at all. They have just interpolated something and they say Haraha Om, which is an absolute shop.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely
Okay, so
incorrect.
My last question, which was sort of preempted by Mrs. Varadarajan, was that we have heard from Dr. Tirunarayana a little bit from Rahasya Trayasaram because we were studying about Om Tat Sat in Gita-artha Sangraha, which comes in the 17th chapter, 23rd verse of Gita, Om Tat Sat iti nirdeshya. So we discussed about Omkara, and so he read to us from Rahasya Trayasaram about how that male Traivanikas can chant Omkara, female Traivanikas, I guess, should chant Amkara, and that all others should be chanting only Namo Narayana. And there's some pramanas have been given by Vedanta Deshika from different Puranas and things like that. So, but I want to be clear, in Tenacharya Sampradayam, all Panchasamskara, all recipients of Panchasamskara are given only the Astakshara mantra as with Omkara included. So there is a slight difference between the two Sampradayas about this.
Yes.
So did you want to say anything more about that, or is there no time today?
That is, we will discuss sometime later. We will have discussion for some time later.
Okay. I also have to look at see what the pramanas are. I want to look up in the different places where Vedanta Deshika's pramanas are coming from, and check them. And then it seems to be a very hot topic, and
hot topic for those who practice.
For those who don't practice, of course, it's not a topic. So those were the only things that I wanted to discuss because it came up because it seems like we started to study parallel Rahasya Trayasaram and Mumuksupadi at the same time we were discussing the Tirumantram. So I wanted to cross-reference and see how they.
It's a very good exercise. It is a good topic for PhD. I don't know who will take it.
Swami, one last question. When we chant Am Namo Narayanaya, should we say Am Namo Narayanaya Namaha or just Am Namo Narayana?
Am Namo Narayanaya only. Because
Okay.
already Namaha is coming there. Twice Namaha is not required.
Okay, okay.
Swami, can I ask also, you just mentioned also that Pillai Lokacharya says that one has to have these 15 qualities to achieve moksha. But is it
Not
not
to
that
achieve
if,
moksha, to be called as a model Sri Vaishnava.
right, but still once one has done prapatti,
Yeah,
with full, has full
maybe we are
faith.
not model Sri Vaishnavas, but maybe even people who are not model Sri
No,
Vaishnavas
I
can go to
will tell
moksha.
that. We will discuss this later. But one thing I have understood your question. Once you have done prapatti, if the prapatti has been consummated, then automatically these things will come to him. So once you have realized that you have to underline the word realized. Once you have realized automatically that you are the servant of the Supreme Lord, automatically you should lose interest in all worldly things. That is the mark of your prapatti having been consummated. Not just, even I will say, oh, I have given up everything. I will, only the Lord is my final resort and I have given everything. Just because if I say in my word, I will just narrate this one. We will have a great discussion, separate discussion on that, because it's a very big topic. So it seems there was a conversation between a wife and a husband. Then the husband said he had gone out somewhere and he came back after some time. And he said he called his wife and with a very happy tone he said, "Oh wife, I have given," probably in American language, "Oh darling," or something like that. He said, "I have given up anger." Then the wife asked, "Oh, I am very happy you have given up anger. Very good, very good. How?" And all those things. They had some, but have you really given up anger? Yes, yes, I have given up anger. Then once again, the wife asked, "Have you really given up anger?" He said, "Yes, I have given up anger." Then after some time, once again she asked, "Have you really given up anger?" And the husband, "How many times I have to tell you? I have given up anger."
So I think the question
So
boils.
So claiming that you have given up anger will not do. You have to really, you should have given up. So if a person, then he says, see, one thing is, if a person has given up anger or desires, he will never claim that. He will say, he will just keep quiet, or he will just smile and keep quiet. He say, if you feel that I have given up anger, fine. Otherwise, I will not worry. So you cannot claim, I am done Sharanagati, so whatever I do, I can do. If you do, you are not a Sharanagati. That's all. So the proof of pudding is in eating. That's all. So if a person not just I do and have Samashanam, that is the first step. But that is the beginning of the beginning. And as the prapatti consummates, then what happens? As a person progresses in spiritual life, he is more and more devoted towards Lord. All these things are going to come in the future. Paramatmaniyo raktaha viraktaha aparamatma. The more and more you are devoted to the Lord, the more and more you lose interest in worldly things.
So I think it depends upon whether you see the 5 aspects of Saranagati as prerequisites or post-requisites. You know, I think in the Deshika Sampradaya they see them as prerequisites, and Tenacharya see them as more as post-requisites. Like the difference in Sanskrit between a vidhi and artha, that they may be vidhis, you have to do them in order to do Sharanagati, or they are just explanation of the characteristics that a prapana will achieve after doing prapatti. So this is just 2 ways of looking at the same thing.
See, more and more you become devoted, automatically you will lose interest in worldly things. You will not not get angry at small things, or you will not be interested in scolding others or berating others and things like that. So all those things have been mentioned, have been enumerated. When a person progresses as a devotee, as his devotion becomes more and more towards God, these things will automatically happen.
So ultimately, prapatti is really that realization. One has to become realized that one is the servant of the Lord, and therefore.
That is why it is mentioned, Yame Vaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyaha Tasyaisha Atma Vivrinute Tanum Swam. So, based on prapatti, he will select the person and then he will reveal himself to him. That is only then when he has the sakshatkara here in this world, then only he will become Purna, he will become complete. Until that happens, it is not possible. And for that, Lord has to select. And what we do by means of prapatti is we just make ourselves known that we are surrendered. We have surrendered.
So really, if one hasn't come to that realization, one could say that prapatti hasn't really, as you said, been consummated.
Yes. Merely by mentioning that I am prapanna will not do.
Yes. And one last thing, back to the hot topic of Om. And you're mentioning about this understanding about fertility with women and something to do with also with, the lower caste chanting it, that it could affect their physiology in some way.
Yes.
Is there pramanam for this? Is there some pramanam for this, or this is something that was just accepted and understood? Where did this idea come from?
Pramanas are there in certain minor Upanishads.
Yeah, I was very surprised when you said that a lady would be given panch samskara only after having children, because normally we think that ladies immediately after a marriage they have to have panch samskara so that they can cook
some sampradayas
for cooking.
Yes, they do, but in some sampradayas they don't do that. They wait for some time.
But not the Tengalai Sampradaya.
Yes, you can keep it like that. These are all like, you cannot generalize. People who know, they will do like that. So, anyway, we will discuss these things separately.
Yeah, even there are different sects like Vaikanasins who do things much differently. So, like you said, it's not just Vadagalai and Tengalai differences. There are so many different groups who have slightly different ideas.
Yeah, there are so many layers.
Right, just like we heard from Dr. Tirunarayan, the Hobala Mat Jeers talks about Astakshara having Swaram and all these things.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Kamavastham prapadyante jantavo hantamadrisha punyam bhoja vikasaya papadhvantakshayaya cha Shrimanavirabbhut bhumo Ramanujya Divakaraha Nikrita Virinchari Nirankusha Vibhutayaha Ramam Japadam Bhoja Samashrena Sharinaha